Hey everybody, I wanted to do a quick little video here because I just discovered a new plant, weed, whatever you want to call it, in my garden today that I have never seen here before. Now when I first saw this growing, the plants were really small and kind of low to the ground and had these spiky little leaves on them, or I don't know, ferny looking leaves. I don't know really how to describe them. But you may remember from, I think it was my first video on the garden tour, I had come past this bed, which most of this bed is empty right now except for the zinnia. But I was leaving this part of the bed open after I pulled the cabbage to plant some cabbage and other things this fall. So some stuff started growing up in here. When I first saw these plants, I thought it was a watermelon because of the leaves. And I didn't really look at it that closely, but the leaves just kind of reminded me of a watermelon. But I came out here today and they had all these blossoms on them. Like, I haven't really been paying attention to this bed. And they had, you know, these flowers that were blooming. And they looked kind of like a hibiscus to me, but not quite. And it reminded me of the okra that I had growing in this bed last year, which okra is part of the hibiscus family and has very pretty flowers, you know, when it first blooms. And these looked similar to that, but you know, the leaves didn't match up, the plants didn't match up. So I wasn't really sure what was going on. So I had posted the question with a picture of the flower and the leaves in the raised bed gardening group on Facebook that I'm part of, and asked, you know, what kind of plant is this? Because I'm not really sure. And somebody had, you know, got their plant app out and identified it very quickly, which I guess I could have done because I have a couple plant apps. I just didn't do it, and I always like to see what the feedback is on the different Facebook groups anyway. So this is called, actually it's got a whole bunch of different names. Bladder flower, flower of the hour, hibiscus bladder, and there's several other names that I don't remember what they all are. But so this is basically considered a weed, although some people do grow it like in pots as a succulent. Yeah, I guess it's also listed as a succulent, although the stems on them don't look very succulent to me. But it's considered a weed because I guess it spreads pretty quick. The flower of the hour name, I think, is pretty accurate because apparently it only blooms for, you know, like an hour or two per day, and within 2 or 3 days the flowers die off. So I just happened to be out here at the right time this morning, and I after doing a little bit of research, after getting my answers on the Facebook group, I ran back out here, and like this flower here that I had the clip of on the video was completely open when I first took the picture of it, and it's already starting to close up, and all these flowers were open earlier and they're all closing up already, and this was just like 15 or 20 minutes ago. Now I don't know how long they were open this morning. From what I've seen, they bloom for, you know, maybe 2 or 3 hours during the early morning hours and then close up, and then a couple days later they die off. Then they have these seed pods on them, which will then spread the plant. And in a lot of cases they're considered an invasive species, but you know, they kind of have a pretty little flower on them, you know, to see. It was kind of neat to see it pop up in the garden. And from the research that I did earlier, you know, I went to some gardening websites where people, you know, comment and you know, talk about their experiences with different plants. But there were people from all over the world talking about this, like New Zealand and England and all over the US. But it was the first time I'd ever seen it here, and I'm not really sure how the seeds got here because they weren't here last year, and this is the same dirt that I had last year, so some bird must have dropped it off. The seeds can either cross-pollinate with other species, or they can self-pollinate. If they don't get pollen from another species, then apparently, like, I don't know, they do something where they can self-pollinate. But the ability of them to be able to cross-pollinate with other species that are not part of their same family allows them to build up tolerances to, different kinds of bugs, diseases, whatever. And so they can keep spreading. And so apparently, I guess these seed pods that are on here, and I'll show you a little clip of up close of what they look like, will eventually drop seeds, and then they will continue to spread. So if it's something that you don't want in your garden, you would definitely want to start pulling these before the seed heads start doing their business. Hey, so one thing I forgot to mention about this plant when I was doing the main video is that in case if you're interested in like the history of plants or where they originated, the bladder flower or flower of the hour originated in the old world subtropics and tropic areas, and then I think after that it then moved to southern Europe and kind of spread across southern Europe, and then was brought to the United States by people who wanted to then propagate it and plant it as like an annual. But since then, now the seeds they've gotten out and they're everywhere. So anyway, there's that little bit of history if you're interested. But just wanted to share that. I mean, it's a weed that kind of has a pretty flower on it, but you can also, I saw a couple places where you can actually buy these seeds. People do cultivate them, I guess, but it's better if you keep them maybe in pots away from your garden. Otherwise, you might end up with full beds of this. I mean, I have a whole section through here that have now popped up, and I saw these popping up in one or two other places and a couple other beds that I'd pulled them out early, but because I wasn't really doing anything with this bed, I just kind of left it. So there you have it, flower of the hour, bladder hibiscus, bladder flower, and whatever other names it has. So if you're interested in flowering weeds, it's kind of a cool one. Part of the hibiscus family. Same thing as the okra. So anyway, thanks for stopping by and checking out the video. Hope you subscribe to our channel. Generally, I'm not talking about flowering weeds. More often, I'm talking about other things going on in the garden or how-tos on stuff in the garden. DIYs and all that kind of good stuff. So hope you'll check out our other content and stick around. Hope to see you soon. And in the meantime, I hope you're having a great day. Namaste.